Yeah.
Timothy.
Get me going. Happening now.
Well, I love that background cheering,
It's pre-recorded.
Is it? Oh,
No.
okay. I was not aware of that. Okay. Good morning, Timothy, once again. Good morning to everybody who is watching us on LinkedIn and also Facebook, and to everybody who joined us in Clubhouse. Also, well, Merry Christmas, as Mario already wrote there. It's just the day before Christmas, Christmas Eve tonight. And once again, it is our pleasure to have you with us. We have also Timothy Langley, the CEO of Langley Esquire, a consulting firm here in Tokyo, downtown Tokyo, and me as a host, Maya Matsuoka. We have a couple of news to share with you today, but well, I'll let Timothy do that anyway. So without any further ado, Timothy, I'm giving you the floor. I'm giving you the mic. I'm giving you all the time you need to take. So that you can let us know what happened in Japanese politics during this past week.
Great. Thank you very much, Maya, and good morning, everybody, and good afternoon or evening to those of you who are signing on from overseas. And in fact, I want to extend my appreciation to you who have expanded and kind of proliferated our channel, especially in light of what's been going on currently with the political scandal in Tokyo, sharing it with your friends and talking about what's going on and how smart you are and how much more you know than everybody else because you're tuning into this channel. And it always surprises me as I prepare for every week that we are about a week, sometimes 10 days ahead of the regular news channel, the news feed that comes up. So thank you very much for tuning in. Please continue to share it with your friends and colleagues. Today is December 24th. Merry Christmas, Christmas Eve. This is the evening when everybody takes out their dates and is supposed to have a Christmas Eve dinner. So trying to get a dinner reservation on the 25th of December in Tokyo is extremely difficult, and lots of couples are out. Today is our 150th consecutive briefing, Maya. Did you realize that? 150 consecutive briefings. That's 150 Sundays that we have spent together instead of staying in bed and drinking coffee.
All right. Yes, I noticed that, and I actually meant to mention it, but I left it to you. So thank you very much for
it's all
everybody's
your
attention.
fault.
It is, yes, and I can live with that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Also, everybody, you might have noticed that we produced, in conjunction with Dan Harada, a 30-minute briefing that's available on YouTube right now on the impending collapse of the Abe administration. Is that right? Do I have that right?
Oh, yes,
Maya?
it is. Yes, it is. And I will share the URL of the YouTube video in Clubhouse as well, so that everybody who is there, if they're interested, they can go straight away and watch it.
Okay. So we had a 35-minute briefing on Thursday. And since then, Maya, you have edited it out and taken all the stupid things that I said and replaced those with smart things. And it's a more compressed, comprehensive briefing. I reviewed it last night. It looks really good. So for those of you who might have missed the earlier presentation or who would like to, retune it a little bit, please visit the URL that Maya is sharing with you. And thank you very much once again for staying tuned. So I can't start this briefing without talking once again about the impending collapse of the Abe administration and the impact this is having on the Kishida administration. So there's been a lot going on. The extraordinary diet session ended on the 13th. Today is the 24th, so ended almost a week ago. And a lot has happened since then. First of all, the public prosecutors, although they have been actively pursuing diet secretaries and the administrators and financial accountants, within the various political factions that make up the LDP. They have been kind of unleashed. The dogs of war have been unleashed on the 14th because the Diet is no longer in session, and members of the parliament can be approached and somehow, somewhat coerced into providing details and information. So everything is pretty much broken up since then. Maya, can you turn off your mic, please?
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you. I could hear you brushing your teeth. So the public prosecutors have been very actively pursuing, and Mr. Kishida in lockstep has been very active in purging the LDP, purging his administration from anybody associated with the Abe faction. This is really a strange development, although the Abe faction consists of about a quarter of all LDP members, about 27%. And it did have a hold on the cabinet posts, the main cabinet posts, and some of the LDP posts. Those have all been removed. And in the level that's just below that, the vice ministerial level or the senior political appointments, those have also been removed. So although the Abe faction was in a position to exert influence over the Kishida administration, they did lack a single voice with which to speak through. 99 members compared to the next largest LDP faction, which is the ASO faction, at around 58 members. So without that single voice, without that strength of a single personality who is welding and keeping cohesive the entire membership of the Abe faction, it has been pretty much struggling internally, but easy pickings for the prime minister. So he has gone through and basically purged the Abe administration, although it's been the Abe administration and the Nikai administration who were initially pointed out as violating this public political funds control law and collecting funds, not reporting them, distributing them to various members within the faction. That's the whole brouhaha. There's a lot going on about who received how much money and what they used for it, but I think the tolerance level of just taking money and sticking it in your pocket, that tolerance among the Japanese population, the voting population, is very low. So any violation, even if it's less than 1 million yen or more than 1 million yen, it still drives people's ire up considerably because they have such a high expectation and a standard that they hold for, well, everybody in politics and in business, in law, but particularly with the politicians, who hold themselves as creators and progenitors of Japanese law. That's how the law starts, is it starts inside the Diet and it becomes law as a vote from the Diet. So getting things done without this single voice of the Abe administration has been hampering. And the problem is that now, since they haven't gotten their act together, ever since Mr. Abe was assassinated, they haven't been able to coalesce their forces. They're basically fighting among each other for primacy of leading the group. And they've lost that opportunity. And now they're just pretty much, cast to the wind. So the briefing that Dan and I presented just on a couple of days ago was on the impending collapse of the Abe administration. And I hold a lot of admiration and a lot of respect for the Abe administration, the Abe faction. And I have many friends there, as does Dan. It's you can't really be involved in Japanese politics unless you are somehow affiliated with the Abe faction and members of the Abe faction, the history of the Abe faction. So it's a sad thing for us to see this happening, but it is just inevitable that they will be picked apart. And I think the days of the Abe faction, 99 members, is quickly drawing to a close. Although the year is coming to an end now, the Diet is out of session, and the constitutionally mandated original session, the ordinary session of the Diet, needs to start in January. Last year it started on January 10th. But I think Mr. Kishida is going to push that a little bit later in the month to give the public prosecutors time to complete their investigation. And it seems to me that there's a little bit of backroom politics going on, that the bus that is going to, people are going to be thrown under, the LDP bus is going to be crowded with mostly LDP members taking the blame, a few other potentially influential members, perhaps of the Nikai faction. But Mr. Kishida's faction has also been identified, and he was, in fact, the leader of the LDP faction until this scandal began to break. So while the Diet was still in session, an extraordinary session, Mr. Kishida was the leader of the faction. It's an unusual step for a prime minister to do that. Traditionally, if you become prime minister, you resign from your role as a leader of a faction. Every prime minister has been a leader of their particular faction, except Mr. Suga, who had no political faction. But generally speaking, when you become a prime minister, you relinquish that role, you give it over to your number two, which in probably Mr. Kishida's case would be Mr. Hayashi, who has been identified and selected now as Mr. Kishida's chief cabinet secretary. So he's the spokesman for the prime minister. There was a lot of pushing back and forth there with who was going to be the chief cabinet secretary. In fact, Mr. Matsuno, who was in the Abe faction, was the first to bite the bullet and resign even before the extraordinary Diet session ended. This is a huge deal for the chief cabinet secretary to resign. And Mr. Kishida had a hard time finding somebody to replace him. Initially, the drive was to find somebody who was independent, no party, no factional affiliation, but within the LDP. And the 2 or 3 members that he approached actually refused the offer to become chief cabinet secretary. So that tells you how toxic the Kishida administration seems to be. So apparently the individuals who had good profile, had Diet portfolios or cabinet portfolios in their background already, refused to take that next step up. Many prime ministers have come into the position because they were chief cabinet secretaries. So it's a prime role, and to refuse that is a pretty it's pretty significant. I mean, it tells you a lot. Mr. Hayashi now as the chief cabinet secretary, I think that's a good move. He and the prime minister are tied at the hip, and he's a great guy. He's a great politician, very influential. I think he's done a great job when he was a foreign minister as well, and he's just a very likable, very honest individual. And I think he's got great legs on him. If there is a change in the prime ministership, definitely he will be a top candidate there. And also within his faction is Kawakami, Miss Kawakami, who is now foreign minister, also doing an excellent job, but she's also within the Kishida administration. So the new cabinet posts and the LDP positions are being supplemented not just by Kishida administration. Actually, you can see that the prime minister is being hesitant to push his own faction leaders into these positions of power, and instead bringing in other faction leaders and faction members to supplement that, and also a heavy preference for people who don't have a party affiliation. So there are a couple of prominent ones that immediately come to mind. Mr. Ishiba is one, Mr. Suga is one, Miss Takaichi is one. Those three were, even prime ministerial candidates in the past, coming from no factional affiliation. And so I think they have good prospects there. What's going to be happening in Japanese politics over the next 2 months is going to be tectonic. It is going to change the look and the feel of Japanese politics. It is predicted that the Abe faction will splinter. There will be a couple of different factions that come out of that. It is talked about right now that Mr. Hagiuda, who was the policy affairs chief he was removed. He has been implicated in receiving some of these political kickbacks and not reporting them. But apparently his violations are not that high. But like I said earlier, any violation is a violation. But it seems as if he is going to be collecting a group to his side. You've got Mr. Seko, who also resigned. He was the chief cabinet secretary or the chief spokesman for the upper house. So he's a very prominent member of the upper house, ineligible to become prime minister as a consequence of that, unless he changes houses. But he's going to probably take his group of Abe faction LDP members, which is significant, and start his own political faction too. And then there are many faction members who will become independent. They will be Ronin, they'll be lone soldiers. And this group of independents within the LDP already matches about the same number as the Abe faction. I think there are about 78 who are independent, who belong to the Abe faction, and that number is likely to grow. More than that, though, if there is an election, the people in the Abe faction, and probably less so to the Nikai faction and to others who are independently identified by the public prosecutor's office as being implicated in this scandal, will not win their next election. So as we've talked about before, the role of the Unification Church in helping people get elected, and also the role of Komeito in helping these LDP members get elected in their districts, is really razor thin. And that's why the coalition between Komeito and the LDP is so critically important, because Komeito, even though their policies diverge pretty significantly on certain issues with the LDP, they come together because the members of Komeito vote in bloc. They listen to what Komeito instructs them to do, and they vote accordingly. If there's not a candidate from Komeito in their election district, and they're told by Komeito headquarters, please vote for this LDP individual, in the absence of having a Komeito candidate, they usually do that. And they can bring 20,000 votes to any election district that they exercise that kind of influence over their membership. Very few political parties are able to do that. The Communist Party obviously does, but they have so few numbers, and their influence is not very great. But I have to point out that in this emerging scandal that started about 3 weeks ago, the Communist Party has been, right on the spot. Initially, they came up with the first story about this scandal, highlighting the criminal complaint that was lodged by a professor, a political science professor in Kobe Gakushin University in Kobe, about this discrepancy between the amount of funds that were collected by these various LDP factions, he was non-specific initially, and the amount of money that was reported in taxes. He identified that. He began to focus a little bit more on who was getting what and how they were getting it and what the reports were. And then he filed a criminal complaint. The Akahata, which is the newspaper and the main vehicle for generating revenue for the Japan Communist Party, began to highlight that. And then in Diet hearings, when this came up 3 weeks ago, there is a Communist Party member who is just Johnny on the spot. She is so acerbic, she is so witty, and very acerbic in her comments towards the prime minister and to the administration about this political funding. So that really fanned the flames and brought this thing to a full boil. So there's plenty more to say about that. It's not the bloodletting has not ceased yet. I think we're only getting started with it. As you might know, the public prosecutor's office in Tokyo is unable to deal with a scandal of this size, this magnitude. I mean, this is huge. This is bigger than the recruit scandal that brought down an earlier LDP administration about 20 years ago, 15 years ago. So this one is bigger. It's going to leave marks. It's going to leave a bruise, and it is going to color LDP politics and also the administration of the state going forward. It could potentially collapse the Kishida administration. We're not going to know that for a couple of months, I don't think. The main item of business, once the Diet comes back into session, they will have to deal with this scandal as well, but it's passing the budget. The budget typically in Japan is submitted by the various ministries before the close of the year. So they submitted, all of the ministries submitted their budget. The administration compiled it and promoted that as this is the budget we are going to pursue once the Diet comes in session. Part of that was the defense spending, another record year for 2024. The demand from the finance of the country on paying for their defense expenditures. It is the largest that it's been. It exceeds what the defense budget was in 2023. And similarly, the budget that is being promoted for passage on April 1st is also the largest budget that has been on record. So there's a lot going on there. And it is possible that the government could collapse. There could be a vote of no confidence. We really don't know. But, you know, it's funny that Mr. Kishida is a little bit dancing above the clouds on this one. He seems to be a bit above the fray, which is really strange. He has replaced the Internal Affairs Minister, who was an Abe appointee, Abe faction appointee, and he's replaced him. And that individual is in charge of the public prosecutors, the police forces as well. So it could be that, you know, we identify a bunch of main culprits, we throw them all under the bus, and then we move forward as if everything's been said and done, and we're going to revise to some degree the Political Funds Control Act. Of course, that's all done by politicians. That's all done, you know, the LDP holds the sway there. More than 50% of the vote is held in both houses by the LDP. So any revisions to the existing law will require, you know, a majority vote. And it will also cause a lot of confusion and controversy. So there is an awful lot that's going on there. The public has determined that their confidence in the Kishida administration now is at the lowest the LDP has had since it lost to the opposition party 15 years ago. And the public appreciation now is 17.1% for the Kishida cabinet and 18.3% for the LDP. So these are huge drops that have occurred over the passage of a couple of weeks, although these polls are generally run on a monthly basis, but this is really huge. There will be a by-election in April, I think it's April 18th, for replacing the vacated seat of Mr. Hosoda. You might remember Mr. Hosoda was the Speaker of the House. Mr. Kishida asked him to step aside. He was going to resign. Actually, he didn't ask him to step aside. He voluntarily was going to resign as Speaker of the House due to health reasons, but he was going to maintain his badge and stay a member of the upper house, which was somewhat unusual. Most of the time when people resign from this pinnacle of their career as Speaker of the House, they just retire their badge. They take a kind of a leadership role in the back seats, but they're not a Diet member anymore. He decided that he was going to stay a Diet member, and unfortunately, he died about a week later due to complications. So his Diet seat is now up. There's a period of time when the Diet needs to fill these open Diet seats, and his is the first one that's up on April 18th. And that will be, I guess, it could be interpreted as a referendum on the Abe faction, certainly, but also on the Kishida administration. Who is going to win that seat in Shimane Prefecture? So many people will read into it if the LDP doesn't win or whatever happens there, that this spells the end of whoever is on the losing end of that. But it is also extremely possible that it won't just be one by-election. So between now and that period of time, there will be other members who resign or who are arrested or under indictment and are forced to resign as a consequence of that. And this could be really big. It could cut that razor's edge margin that many LDP members have when they go to the polls. And if there is a poll now, the prime minister definitely is not going to call a snap election now. He's bleeding. The water is trailing behind the boat, it's really difficult to see what's going to be happening in the next couple of months. But we're going to continue to watch that and report to you, and try and provide as much analysis and update as possible. Let me see, what else do we have here? There are other things that are going on unrelated to what's going on with Mr. Kishida, but he was busy this last week. The ASEAN had their meeting here, and also a follow-up to COP28, which the Prime Minister attended 3 weeks ago. He was out of the country for 3 days. I think it was a Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and he came back so that he could catch this briefing. The role of the Prime Minister in defining, for example, carbon neutrality. He's trying to present Japan as a leader, putting Japan in a leader position to determine these carbon credits and sequestration of carbon. He has said by 2035, Japan will be basically approaching carbon neutrality, and by 2050, Japan will be carbon neutral. He wants to drive this engine throughout all of Southeast Asia, so he set up an initiative to do that. So there's much going on there. Also, you might have heard that we always report on Okinawa because it's a critical issue of Japan's defense posture. 70-80% of the U.S. forces that occupy Japan or that defend Japan are located in Okinawa. The Futenma Marine Air Corps base is in Futenma. It's right in the middle of Ginowan. It's a massive space that the city has eventually grown around like a donut. And although the recent crash of the airplane 2-3 weeks ago did not come out of Okinawa, still there's a lot of concern about the safety and the security of the population surrounding this. So there was a decision made 5 years ago to move the air base from Ginowan to Henoko, which is a spit of land near Nago. So it's much more remote. It's separated from the huge population center. And Denny Tamaki, who is governor of Okinawa, who has actually campaigned and became governor as a consequence of his opposition to the U.S. forces moving and destroying the environmental part of Henoko and dumping, pieces of land and extending the reef. He has been fighting that. It's gone to court, and just this last week, the High Court said, "Look, you lose. It's not sovereign immunity that the government has, but they have exhausted all means of negotiation with you, and they hold primacy in the decision on this development by the U.S. Forces for the protection of Japan. So you lose. You have to accept the design changes and the construction of this air base." So now that's moving forward, in spite of the fact that it looks like maybe, let me see, 70% of the poll taken in Okinawa, of the people who live in Okinawa, have opposed this movement. But it is a promise that was made by the United States to reduce the footprint and to reduce the strain on the economy there. This whole area of Futenma will go open for public redevelopment. They've talked about a lot of different things, housing and entertainment, that sort of thing. So it's still a story that hasn't been fully told. The development of Henoko will continue on for another 5 or 6 years before the Marines actually take over there. But this is something that's happening. At the same time as that, you might have heard that Japan has signed an agreement with Italy and the UK on next generation fighters. This is a project that was started maybe 5 years ago. It is now going into implementation. This is the first time that Japan has signed a defense cooperation agreement where they're producing armaments with a country besides the United States. So this is very significant. Britain, Italy, and Japan developing a next generation fighter. It will probably be hitting the market in 2035, and all of the technology that's going into that, they're spreading the costs out in the development among these three countries. It is expected to be a game changer in terms of air defense, and some of the specs on the ultimate product that will be developed is pretty eye-opening. And the geopolitical situation between now, 2024, in a few days, and 2035 is expected to be extremely different than it is now. So this is in preparation of that. So they've set up a new organization called the Global Combat Air Program with these three parties. The organization will be based in London, or at least in Britain, and the rotating head of that, the first head will be from Japan to kind of signal probably that a lot of the money and the technology will be coming from Japan, but eventually that will be spread out. And the project is to deliver the next generation fighter by 2035, and to, number two, enhance defense, the industrial base of each country. So Japan and Italy will be supplementing and supporting what's going on in Britain. Britain and Italy will be supplementing what's going on in Japan. Britain and Japan will be supplementing what's going on in Italy. BAE Systems from Britain, Mitsubishi Heavy from Japan, and Leonardo from Italy are the main contractors there. And the defense ministers of all three countries were in Tokyo just this last week, getting the sign off there. So that's moving in a very brisk direction as well. You will have noticed perhaps that the yen has been really vacillating. It went from 147 to about $140 to the yen in a one-day spread after the Bank of Japan governor Ueda made some comments in a Diet hearing, and it really excited things. I mean, the yen was at 151. That was, that is astronomical, and to go from that level to where it is right now, today it is at 142.4 in the span of just 2.5 weeks, is really astounding. So there's real fluctuations going there. Mr. Ueda, Bank of Japan Governor Ueda, has made pronouncements that people are reading into the tea leaves about sticking with the easy money and the amount of points dedicated to the bonds that are issued by the Japanese government to remain around 0% or 0.1%. So there's vacillation there, and people are anticipating and expecting him to move that and to release that a little bit so that the bonds can go through more of a change and the economy hopefully can take off. He's holding off on that because the inflation rate still remains about 2.31% in latest figures, and those are issued by the government, so they're somewhat questionable. If you take out gasoline and fresh fruit and vegetables, it impacts it a different way. But I think most people living on the economy realize that the inflation rate is probably around 3.4%. And so the Bank of Japan is trying to tap that down. this last month, the consumer price index did fall a little bit, giving a little bit of a lift to the spirits for the Bank of Japan. But as it currently stands right now, the Japanese government, the Bank of Japan, owns, or the finance ministry owns 58% of the bonds issued. So that means of all the debt that is being generated to support the economy here, to pay for things, more than half of that, it's actually been more than half of that for many years, but it's approaching 58% of this debt is held by the Japanese government. So that is untenable, and people are looking forward to the next pronouncements coming out of the Bank of Japan with trepidation. And so there's a lot of speculation going on there. Some people say that the yen will approach the 135 mark within 2024, and that could happen sooner rather than later. But there's still a lot going on there. And this, of course, impacts trade and investment and the flow of visitors into Japan. And we frequently talk about tourism because it's such a big deal here. It is not free money, but it's kind of free money for the government. It is calculated as a foreign investment into Japan. And the numbers now have been in for November. November exceeded the November of 2019 before we got hit by COVID, or I think we got hit by COVID around 2019. And the number of visitors just in November has exceeded 22 million for the month. So this is pretty astounding. And it's also in light of the fact that the Chinese, who consisted of 30% of that number, 22 million in 2019, it's exceeded 22 million now by a couple of 100,000. But 30% of that in the past was from China. And currently today, that number from China has been reduced to 10%. So it's due to travel restrictions, but also a tightening economy in China. So the numbers look like this. If you're noticing the number of foreigners coming in and where they're coming from, the ranking is most of them come from South Korea, from Taiwan, and from the United States. So in terms of numbers, just for November now, the numbers coming in from South Korea is 649,000. So from Taiwan, it's 403,000. And then from China excluding China, but from Hong Kong and from Taiwan, those numbers are 285,000 and 200,000 from Hong Kong. And so that's that exceeds what the United States is providing to the mix, 184,000 visitors in November alone. So the numbers are very actually astounding. And it looks like if you follow this trajectory, because it's cold now, but still it's many visitors are coming in. So when the weather heats up, and as we approach, for example, Ohanami season, the streets are going to be crawling with tourists. This is a huge magnet. And so it's a boost to the economy. And what they've noticed also is the spending patterns of people who are coming to visit. So although people who visit Australia or Hong Kong spend more, they spend maybe $8,000 on their visits here. They might be from 2 or 3 to a week's stay here. They spend a large amount of money. People traveling to Japan spend less money when they do come and visit. And part of that reason is, number one, remember that 30% of the Chinese, they would come in and bakugai. They would buy the rice cookers and the toilet seats and the all sorts of stuff, all these luxury goods. They would purchase them in cash and then take them back to China. That's not happening so much with the vast majority of people who are coming in now. They're buying, it's not quite trinkets, but they're buying mementos of their trip here. So maybe lacquered boxes, iron kettles, something to hold pencils. So the purchasing is not as robust as it was with the Chinese, but they're still purchasing, the toilet seats and the rice cookers too. But the amount of revenue that is being generated per visitor is low. And one of the reasons that they have analyzed that being is that people come in and the amount of money that they spend is on a hotel and food and purchases, but they don't spend it on entertainment, entertainment or services, tour guides, or renting cars and that sort of thing. So apparently, the service level of the industry here in Japan, geared towards tourists, is undeveloped and not as well exercised as it is in other countries. So if there were more people that were involved in that industry, that's one of the problems that the country has, is there's a lack of labor. And so these service industries are not really able to gather more tourists and more tourist dollars. So it looks like that there might be a bit of a push there. And also the Diet is considering, the Prime Minister just approved it just this last week, for ride sharing. So the law currently stands that taxi companies are the only ones that can be recruited or called on to take paying customers. A private individual cannot do that. You have to be licensed. You have to belong to a taxi company. And that ban on having private individuals provide rides for paying customers is now going to be revised. They've approved that. The Prime Minister approved that just before the Diet session ended, and it will go into implementation in April as a kind of an experiment. And it's a halfway house. The taxi companies, of course, oppose it. So the Prime Minister has put them in a kind of a middleman's role, so that if you want to hire yourself out, hire your car out, you need to be registered with one of the taxi companies who will be managing that for a period of time, your training and the insurance and the fees and how you collect the fees and calculate the fees, that sort of thing. But in June, probably that ban will be released. And I think the first couple of months are just a nod to the power of the taxi companies to give them a bit of a breathing time. Their complaint is this ride sharing is not going to help encourage more drivers to the industry, to drive taxis or to drive buses. And there's a huge hole there with the number of people. So if you've actually looked around, the age of taxi drivers and the bus drivers and the lorry drivers is actually moving up, and new people aren't going into that industry. So probably this ride sharing is just a middle step, and then autonomous driving is probably right around the corner there. So we're going to keep our eye on that, because it's something that's pretty exciting in terms of technology and in terms of commerce. The other thing that the Diet considered this last week and will be put up for a vote when the Diet comes back into session is the joint custody. You might remember that Japan only allows, in the event of a divorce or a separation, the custody of the children to be assigned to one parent. So there are two rights that are assigned to children, raising children, and one of those is the right to manage them and keep them. The other is the right to for their upkeep and their education. And frequently, there are lots of different situations, but many foreigners have become involved in this divorce situation with the Japanese spouse, and they get embroiled in this controversy where Japan only acknowledges one spouse having a legitimate control over the children of the marriage. And this has caused a lot of problems, because in most instances, it's the foreigner who gets the short end of the stick. Not in all instances, but there is a preference here in the court system, in the family courts, the public prosecutors, the lawyers, the judges. They have that preference that has been deemed extremely unfair and injurious throughout the world. And so the Japanese government is trying to accommodate this. I don't know if it will hit the marks, but the bill will go up for discussion in the Diet this next year. This is a great victory for a lot of people, like Vincent, who has suffered. There's thousands of people who have suffered from this this law that only allows one party to have exclusive control of the children, which means that the other party is basically frozen out from seeing their children, from being involved in their lives in any way whatsoever. And it's an incredibly harsh result. So it looks like that is going to get a little bit of attention this next year. Finally, not finally, but North Korea launched its 5th long-range ballistic missile just this last week. On Monday, they did that. The day earlier on Sunday, they launched another short-range ballistic missile. Both of these splashed down in waters off of Hokkaido, but not within Japan's exclusive economic zone. And the ICBM that was fired with a solid fuel rocket, which is an advance in technology that allows North Korea to conceal these weapons until they want to be used, bring them out, and then fire them very quickly. The ICBM apparently was fired out of the capital city, strangely enough. So it was a rocket that reached its trajectory. It flew for 70 minutes and then it crashed down. It hit the spot that it was dedicated to be hitting for a show of accuracy, but it was also a display that this ICBM could hit anywhere in continental United States. So they flew it for 70 minutes, and then it had an accurate splashdown as a show of force, I think, likely. And the North Koreans have said that this is because the United States and Korea and Japan have now launched this joint sharing program of missile technology coming from South Korea. So it's a little bit strange, but anything that will stick apparently is okay. So they fired this rocket because the United States, Japan, and South Korea are concerned about the technology that is being initiated and the threatening posture of the North Koreans, and the North Koreans say that's because you're investigating too much. So the situation in North Korea is very tenuous. You might remember that the no-fly zones and the agreement of the North Koreans and the South Koreans to tell each other if there's going to be any troop movements or flying any drones or aircraft over these sensitive areas, that agreement has been withdrawn. The North Koreans have walked away from that agreement. So there's a lot going on there, to say nothing about what's going on in the Sakhalin Islands with Russia. There's been some real developments there, and also what's going on in the South China Seas with the Philippines. So there's a lot bubbling there. I don't have time to go into all of them, and I think I've already exceeded my time. But I think there is only one other issue I want to talk about in Japanese politics. You might remember that the Democratic Party for the People had a split 2 or 3 weeks ago while the Diet was in session. And Mr. Tamaki, who is the leader of that party, voted along with the LDP on a certain bill to distribute funds for disadvantaged people. And this was against the wishes of the number 2 in command, Mr. Maehara, who said we shouldn't strategically, we should not align ourselves with the LDP. We should align ourselves with the opposition party. If we're going to collapse the LDP, if we're going to have any chance of taking power away from the LDP, we need to align our forces with other opposition parties. And since you've done that, and that was the last straw, I'm leaving. I'm taking 5 members of our group and I'm starting a new political party. And this party is called the Free Education for All Citizens Party. So this happened about 3 weeks ago, and now new life is being injected there because it looks like since the Abe faction is under so much heat and the Kishida administration is being really shaky, there's a lot of impetus now for these parties to coalesce with each other along the lines Mr. Maehara was proposing in the first place. So he is proposing a coalition between Ishin, the Constitutional Democratic Party, and his new party. And I think you're going to see a lot more momentum building up there. I think there will be a very significant challenge to Mr. Kishida going forward. The no confidence motion that was provided on the last day of the extraordinary diet session did not pass, but that was before everything kind of broke open. Actually, it was as things were breaking open. But there is some real potential for complete realignment in Japanese politics. You're seeing the seeds of that now. So we're going to continue to follow that. I appreciate everybody staying tuned and being interested enough in Japanese politics to participate, to share, and to provide a comment, hit like, and I really appreciate that. Maya, I'd like to pass it back over to you. We can hit the Q&A session now.
Thank you very much, Timothy. This time I didn't forget to unmute myself. So, okay, I'm sorry for this. All right, so we have one question actually from last week. It was shared with us on YouTube, and I believe that it overlaps with a question from Rumiko on LinkedIn this time. So last week's question is about basically about the religious movements in Japan and their involvement in politics. So it says, are there any other religious organizations trying to break into the political mainstream landscape now? Because we have talked about the Unification Church, of course, and Soka Gakkai, but in addition to these two, are there any other movements that are related to?
Yeah, that's a great question. Who did that come from, Rumiko?
Well, this week from Rumiko, and then last week from a viewer with a handle name on YouTube. Yes.
Okay. Part of the reason why these religious organizations want to get involved in politics is as a protective measure. So if there's something that's going on, people love to blame a specific group, and religious organizations are easy targets. The South Koreans or the Koreans who live in Japan, or who were brought forcibly over during the colonial period and live in Japan now, they're easy targets too. Foreigners, not particularly the Western foreigners, but from Vietnam, from Cambodia, for those on the workers' visas that frequently get criticized, they're open to criticism too. So I think for religious organizations, they want to have some pockets. They need to be in the pockets of politicians, just like any company, in order to protect themselves or promote their interests. But perhaps for religious organizations, having that stamp of approval and that kind of veneer of acceptability also helps their proselytization and also the accumulation of their memberships. Japan's a really strange place when it comes to religion, as I think everybody in the audience understands. It's very ambidextrous and fluid about how they feel about religion and how they feel about marriage and death and that sort of thing. So religions have a very unique role in Japanese society. And so if you take a look at what's going on with the Jehovah's Witnesses. So the Jehovah's Witnesses have been under attack, if you've noticed that recently, about sexual exploitation, about the training of children, about what they're doing to proselytize. So they're apparently the flavor of the month. There's been a lot of news going on about Jehovah's Witnesses. And so most people's experience with Jehovah's Witnesses are when they knock on your door, there's two of them. Just like when the Mormons were doing it, there's two people there, and have you found Jesus, and can we come in and talk to you about your life and what the meaning of life is and what you're doing, and can we help you in any way, that sort of thing. And so you're seeing that going on right now with Jehovah's Witness. I'm sure they have some politicians that are favorable to them. They help them with their elections. They attend their briefing breakfasts and that sort of thing. But yeah, I think there's there is an attraction for religious organizations, and it's just because they're religious organizations, but it is with any large organization in Japan. You need to have some political pull in order to protect yourself and get things done and to attract different members and just to kind of stabilize your relationship with the rest of society. I hope that's somewhat responsive. I'm sure other people have other views on that.
Oh, yes, I believe that there are other views as well. So thank you for, answering this question. There is one more question before we go into the questions in Clubhouse, where we have Yuka with us on stage. Well, the one question we got on LinkedIn is from Joseph Murphy. So thank you very much, Joseph, for the question. And it is, in terms of scale, how does the current scandal compare to the historic LDP scandal that brought down the Tanaka government?
Yeah, that's a great question, and there are a lot of people that are kind of going through that analysis. We really don't know the answer to that yet, Joseph, but I think that this one surpasses those. It surpasses Recruit. This one not only will bring down potentially the current administration of the Kishida government, but also completely collapse and disintegrate the largest political faction within the LDP. And that is huge. And that damage is long lasting. There will be members who lose their badges, far many more than was involved with the Recruit scandal or with Kakue Tanaka or any of the previous ones, Sakuro Mirukai. These ones were small in comparison. We really don't know the magnitude now, but I can tell you that it is huge, and the reverberations will go on for years to come.
Okay. Oh, thank you for that. Well, it seems that we still have a few things to see what happens in the immediate future for us. Okay. And then Yuka, hello. Can you hear me?
Oh, hi. Thank you. I'm glad that you got to me so quickly. I was
apologies
for
yes, I'm sorry for keeping you
waiting. Down. I'm sorry. I heard myself speaking. I was so fast.
Really? Oh, I didn't notice that.
Really? That was creepy. Okay, sorry. Timothy, hi, Timothy. I have two quick questions. I promise, very quick. So, this will happen today. I've heard this year's kanji of the year. Do you happen to know what that is?
Zeikin.
Zei.
Yes, good for you.
Come on.
Okay. That's why you are Timothy Langley. Okay. So the Zeikin taxation, right? And so why is that? People worried about how people have witnessed rising in taxes already. I thought that the rise in defense spending is probably going to be financed with the higher taxes, right? Is that why people have chosen this particular character?
I think it is, and it's a great question. Of all of the things that the Prime Minister has done with the pronouncements of this is the budget that we're going to promote in the Diet when the Diet comes back into session, and in this Diet session, the budget for the Defense Ministry, I think it's 71. What is it? It's 71 trillion yen for 2024. It's huge, and it's the biggest that they've promoted by far. 7.7 trillion for 2024. The last budget for 2023 was 6.8 trillion. So it's a pretty significant increase. They've promoted that. The budget overall for the defense to bring it from 1% to 2% is 43 trillion over 5 years. And we talked about next generation fighters. They've devoted 64 billion yen for that for this next year. So there's a lot going on there, but the Prime Minister hasn't talked about how he's going to pay for it. And this is something that's kind of been dogging him ever since he became Prime Minister. He has these grand ideas of how we're going to, give everybody milk and eggs and fruit. And there's no way, this new capitalism that he came up with, or this virtuous cycle of investment and reinvestment and it's going to inject money into the economy. He's really never come up hard with that. And with regard to taxes, he's avoided it. So I think it's this kind of thing that's itching you in the back of your mind all the time. We're going forward, but I feel like some essential recipe is being left out. Something's not quite right there. And when you identify it, it is Zay. When is he going to come to terms and tell people, by the way we're going to pay for this is we're going to tax you more? And with him teetering, his approval rate teetering with the LDP and the toilet with their approval rating, this would be the death knell for the LDP. There would be a revolution. We understand that this is what's required. You've said it's going from 1% to 2%, and you're going to tax tobacco, and you're going to sell a bunch of properties that the Japanese government owns. But there's got to be more to it, and we'd like to know what that is. And since they don't know, I think Zay is the appropriate character of the year. The other thing too, you might remember, is that kanji is being considered as a cultural heritage for UNESCO. Did you follow that one too? Which I thought was very interesting.
It is interesting, really? Wow.
Yes.
Do you know the last year's kanji? Haha, got you. No.
Okay.
Last year was.
Can you give me a hint?
I'm sorry, I already told you it's a war. It's so appropriate, right? Because it's last year the Russia invaded Ukraine, so it was a war.
Oh, really?
Yes. Okay, I'm sorry. I googled it earlier. Sorry, I cheated. So. Okay, I'm sorry, Ren is here, but briefly before I'm gonna let Ren ask his question, and if you have time, Maya, I like to ask a second question. But before on this the taxation, the investment community are buzzing about this new NISA and starting next January, because that gives the people, the taxing cut. So I think that's what the government is going to do, right? Yes, we are raising taxes, but you can maybe minimize taxable income by investing in, and then also helping your retirement spending. So it's kind of interesting development.
Yes, but
thank you.
All that investment, it goes once again into, I believe, and I may be wrong, because I haven't done much, research there. But basically, that investment or part of it goes into the government funds or maybe bonds or whatever.
You mean the
NISA? No, is it
really?
different?
Oh, yeah. Of course,
I may be mistaken.
It will go there. Yes, part of it. Yes.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Sorry for that, Yuka. And Timothy.
No. I'm sorry. I didn't. I hate when I use the word "of course." Nothing is "of course" about that. Sorry about that. Okay.
That's all right. Okay, Timothy.
Yes, there are two other aspects of that, if you don't mind. So prices for medical services and pharmaceuticals will increase because they're looking for ways to enhance the tax base. And they're trying to raise taxes without raising taxes, right? Without you noticing that they're raising taxes. And the invoice system is also a way to capture more of the taxable income that is being generated by the underground economy. So people who are fritters or independent contractors, that sort of thing, now in order to get paid, they have to have these invoices that have numbers. And so the government is hoping that it's going to be able to capture more of that underground economy. But yes, they're looking and scraping for it. I mean, the debt to revenue ratio of Japan is just astronomical, and there's no country in G20 that even approaches the lopsided nature that Japan has. So, Zay is a pretty good word.
Yeah, I agree with you. Thank you. And so Maya, please come back to me after, Ren. Thank you.
Sure, I will. Yes. And just a moment, Ren. I saw there is a comment from Gerard a little bit earlier. It was written there. So Gerard wrote in Clubhouse that the custody law cuts out not only foreigners, but also Japanese fathers who may almost never see their kids after divorce, or maybe once a month. The party in the middle that is most affected and least talked about is the children who get no say or representation at all. Yes, indeed. So that is.
Well, yeah, it's true. The vast majority of the victims here are Japanese, and the foreigners. The number of foreigners married to Japanese is I forget what the number is, but among all marriages, it's about 1.3% or something like that. I don't know what the numbers. It's very small, but it's disproportionately impacted because people coming in from different cultures don't know that the person that you married has the ability to remove your children from you at a whim, and they will be protected from that, or protected from your attack on them or from your appeal to them, even approaching the house that you're paying the rent on and saying, I'd like to see my kids, I'd like to come back into my house, and being arrested for violation of trespass or harassment, that sort of thing. So I think that's one of the impacts there. But it definitely, it's not just the children suffer too, but it's parents, it's grandparents, it's uncles and aunts and cousins. I mean, the impact is just enormous. But it's not just Japan. There are other countries that have sole custody laws in place too. It's just that Japan, being the third largest economy in the world, and it's sucking in a lot of talent and a lot of capital, it becomes a bit of a prominent issue and an irritant to the prime minister. So I think that's one of the reasons why he's attempting to deal with it.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks,
for
Jared.
That. Thank you, Gerard. And Ren, omatase shimashita. I'm sorry.
Oh, hi. Hello, everybody. How are you?
Hi.
How's Philadelphia?
We have a Christmas market here as well, so it feels like Germany here in front of City Hall.
Right.
Yeah. So it's great to be able to catch up with you guys. And I have a simple question when I was listening to what Timothy was talking about. North Korea just fired another missile. And I saw the news that the Japanese government again filed a complaint to North Korea through People's Republic of China. And I have to ask, I feel like I have to ask this, why do we have to go through China? Because I was told because Japan does not have a formal diplomatic tie with North Korea, but why do you have to go through China? Because other countries who have more similar values as we do, such as UK, they also have diplomatic tie with North Korea. Why don't we go through them, right? And so I was wondering, maybe because this is the way it has been done, so those people who are filing the complaint, they became lazy. Okay, this is the way we have been doing, so we're going to go through China one more time. Or are they really thinking that, we should go through other countries that are more dependable because China is supporting North Korea, Why do you want to go through a country that probably would have the least impact of what we are trying to communicate to North Korea? It's like we are almost like, Japan is almost like choosing intentionally the least effective person to speak for us, right? So do you know this is because you are the insider? Do you know it's because we have been doing this and therefore we are doing this? Or do you think they are actually thinking and doing this again and again?
I think mostly because that's the way it's been done. As you might know, the foreign ministry has its China group. The China group has been dominant in guiding Japan's relationship with China. And I think it's well understood and appreciated that North Korea is a vassal state. Pardon?
Oh, Timothy?
Yes?
Timothy, we lost you for a moment.
Okay. Any other good news besides that?
Am
I there now? Have you lost me?
Timothy, I'm sorry.
He's...
Yeah, we lost you for a moment. Could you please, say that again?
Am I there?
I'm sorry to ask you to repeat.
Okay.
You are now. Yes.
Yes. Now.
Now you are.
Okay. as you know, Ren, there's a China group within the foreign ministry that that absolutely dominates Japan's relationship with China diplomatically, and everybody understands that North Korea is a vassal state of China. North Korea, their largest trading partner is China. Japan's largest trading partner is China. The China group really wields the power on diplomacy with regard to China, and it wasn't an embassy that was established here in Tokyo. It was a trade office, and that has gone vacant for about 15 years. I remember when it used to be occupied, and when the ship in northern Japan was traveling back and forth between North Korea and Japan on a regular weekly basis, when that was still in service. But all relations have been cut by then, and we're essentially at a stage of high tension, not quite war, but it is very close to that. And I think Japan has relied on that channel with China because there are certain levers that they can push China on, and horse trading being as it is, that maybe they can encourage the Chinese. But like you said, I mean, they've got vested interests too. And just in a separate side issue, Japan appointed a new ambassador to China. I don't know if you noticed that. He's the first one that hasn't come out of the foreign ministry as a member of the China group. So it's a new, fresh look there. Maybe other people are thinking like you are. Why continue to rely on China? We don't get a fair shake there. We've got lots of different issues with them, and this thing with the ballistic missiles is only one. But we sure would like them to lift the ban on the fish stocks coming in from Hokkaido and from northern Japan. What the hell is going on there? So there's a lot of issues going on. I think it's.
I mean, I think we are not political. Yeah, I don't think we are. I don't think we are political scientists or anybody. We are nobody, right? But as somebody who is nobody, we will naturally have a question like, well, I mean, these people are supposed to be much smarter than us, don't they? I mean, even Albert Einstein said something. He said, if you do once and if it doesn't work, and if you try to do the same thing again, and hoping it will work next time, you are crazy, is what he said, right? We have been doing this for like 50 times to North Korea and hoping through China, right? And I saw the comment from Mario, that Germany also has it, and China has more influence on North Korea. That's why we want China to do the job for us, I guess. But China is not using that influence to do it. China has proven very well, has done a good job proving to us that they are not going to use that influence to North Korea to help calm Japan Sea. So I think it's about time to change. It sounds like the Japanese government is thinking about that, huh? Mm-hmm. That would be a good thing. Yeah, just curious. From all the way out from Philadelphia, it just makes no sense. The math don't add up, So I was like, what's going on? That's why it's asking me.
Well, they can't ask the Americans to do anything about it because they're aligned in the hip with the Americans. They can't ask the Russians because it's the Russians that are providing the technology to the North Koreans. The North Koreans are providing, munitions to Russia in exchange for that. So who else are you going to ask? What other big gorillas are there? There's China. Qatar is actually playing a huge role in the Middle East and is being relied upon as a kind of a deal maker in a lot of different areas. But I'm not close enough to the issue, but I think knowing the foreign ministry that they are going to be dedicating their resources to defining how this is shaken out.
Yeah. And I want to thank Tom for rephrasing what I said about Einstein. He said the definition of insanity is doing the same things over and over again, expecting a different result.
Yeah.
So I guess that Japanese foreign ministry is insanity when it comes to North Korea, controlling North Korea through China. Yeah, thank you, Tom. Okay,
Thanks, Tom.
I have spoken enough. Thank you, Maya. I'm going to return the mic to you.
Thanks,
Thank
Ren.
you, Ren. Thank you very much for coming up and speaking. We also have a question from Camilo in Clubhouse. Timothy, I'm going to read it out to you. So it is, just a moment. I'm looking. Oh, where? I think I lost it. No? Okay,
I think the comment was there, and I think it was removed by him or by the person.
Okay, all right.
We
So
threw the question, I think.
okay, yes, we have it now. Thank you very much for that, Ren and Camilo as well. What is the Japanese perception of the U.S. steel acquisition, Timothy?
That was my question too.
That was your question too, Yuka. Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yes, there has been a lot of talk about this recently, right? In Japan and also in the United States and so on. So, Timothy, please share your thoughts on this.
Well, I think, I think if you characterize the Japanese, yes, I think that that pretty much encapsulates it. They did pay a pretty penny for it. They paid a premium over the last bid that was provided by a U.S. Steel competitor. And I think they've cinched the deal with paying this premium. It still needs to go through certain approvals within Commerce and the State Department. It will likely go through, but the thing that's curious to me from the Japanese perspective, here you have Nippon Steel that pays a premium to purchase, an asset in the United States, and all of this money that they have amassed, they've they've kind of squirreled away in order to pay for this is money that could be distributed to workers to increase the pay and increase technology. I think the increase in technology, they've probably already captured that, and that's one of the reasons why they're moving into the United States, because they think that they can expand on their technology prowess. But to be able to capture the steel industry in the United States by purchasing that asset, that's a very big deal. And it tells you that there are things going on that we're not quite aware of, because these kinds of purchases, it's like the next generation fighter. It's 15 years, 16 years until fruition comes up, but they're putting the building blocks together now. So this should be telling you something about either the way steel is made, because the automobile industry consumes so much of the steel, and it's an industry, it's a basic industry that drives the economy. But I think the Japanese are elated by that, because it shows, once again, Japan is coming back. It does seem a little bit strange at this particular point in time with the economy being as it is, but I think it's a good sign for the Japanese. Maybe not such a great sign for the United States. And I think maybe afterwards the Japanese will have indigestion, because the labor unions are so strong at U.S. Steel, and so there might be some problems up ahead. But it tells you something for them to pay a premium like that to cinch that deal. I think that it's a sign of better things to come. But it's not my industry. Maybe somebody in the audience has better insight there.
I think that was a great, interesting take, Timothy, because, I think in the industry, like people, investment community was not too excited, because Japanese are not known for, great M&A executor. So because you have to consolidate with the different culture, the company with the different culture. And then, like you said, they're paying twice as much as the next bid, which was like, this summer. Yeah. So yeah, and then I thought that because of steel is very closely tied with the auto industry, So that might be also interesting take too. And then also,
Yeah.
actually my question was from this side. How's the government typically involved with this? Because the Biden administration has issued some concern, the security issue. So I don't know how they're going to deal with this. But has Japanese government done something similar, or because they're the buying party, so they don't care?
So I think part of this is the security arrangements that Japan has agreed to, incorporating some of the demands maybe of the United States and the Defense Department. This integration of Japan's defense posture and the United States is so great. And I think Japan has given up certain things that might not be obvious to the ordinary eye, but they are being calculated in Kasumigaseki. And maybe as a consequence of that, it's time for a little bit of payback. So we've been doing this for you guys, and we've been doing this for you guys. But on this end, we want a little bit of a concession, and our concession is U.S. steel. So please allow this purchase to go through so that our primacy on basic industries, on steel, on high tech, on petroleum, continues to go forward, and the United States has its areas of interest that Japan has somewhat ceded to the United States. So there's a bit of horse trading that's going on there. So I think that, yeah, it will undergo certain scrutiny, but I think it probably got a wink and a nod. I mean, the Prime Minister was in Camp David just 3 months ago, and this might have been one of the things that they talked about. It's a pretty big deal, though.
Yes, Yuka, I hope.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Well, and then,
What about Camilio?
okay, sorry, there are quite a few. Yes. All right, so we have a couple of questions on YouTube as well from Hot Ocean Music about this deal, and I'll basically their comments. So I'll read them out to you. Let's see. Okay, one of my former clients was a JV between two Japanese competitors in the US, and it was a disaster when both partners are Japanese companies. And then the other comment following is the American employed there said that they got along with the Japanese between the Japanese in the two, what's that cause? Okay. Between the Japanese, and then the Japanese got along with each other. I'm sorry, this is a little bit, yes. I believe that this is these comments come in terms of corporate cultures, also business cultures, because we know that the match of the cultural match actually can make or break an acquisition deal. Yes, that's okay. Apologies for my typos. Yes, thank you very much for that. Anyway, well, and Timothy, it looks like we have another comment. Yes, from from Camilo about this acquisition. He wrote, it reminds me of the 1989 acquisition of the Rockefeller Center to Mitsubishi Estate when the yen rate was 137. Yes, indeed. Okay, and then from Gerard wrote, as you know, I am quite well connected with the inbound tourism industry. One comment I saw on an insiders group regarding ride sharing is that this is one of my biggest gripes with the tourism and rural Japan. A lot of our potential profit goes straight to the taxi companies. And so I wonder what kind of business that person operates, Gerard, because it will be interesting to know how, or whose business the taxi companies are actually appropriating. It is an interesting insight, I believe. Yes. And then from Camilo, thank you for answer. We don't seem to have other questions at the moment. Let me just, yes, I know, Timothy, that you're eager to go. So to everybody who stayed with us then, many thanks for tuning in even on the 24th of December. We hope that this briefing was...
Can I do...
Yes, Yuka? Yuka? Oh, just a moment, please, because I lost you. Yuka?
Oh.
Okay, could you... Yes,
yeah.
Please go ahead. Yes.
Oh. Sorry, because I interrupted you. You know, like you guys are talking about tourism, and it was shocking to me to see the statistics. I think it's Nashi Prefecture just capped, you know, the climber to Mount Fuji at 4,000 daily.
Yes,
and I'm like, 4,000 people climbing a day? I don't mind no climbing at all. But anyway, okay, that's me.
Yeah. Well, I think that 4,000 is still a lot of people for one day, but at least, you know, the idea is that there is a strategy there. And, you know, it's more about sustainability and, well.
Right. But 4,000 is a lot. Okay, anyway.
It is a lot of people, yes.
Sorry. Yeah,
no,
that was it.
Thank you.
Well, it's also 4,000 is a lot because it's a night climb. It's not 4,000 spread throughout the day. It's a chunk that starts around 7 o'clock in the evening. And so people get up there and they'll climb throughout the night. I mean, they might start at sunset, but still it's maybe a 6 or 7 hour climb so that you end up on the summit, you know, before sunrise. So that's 4,000 people that are all racing up there in a very tight packed group. So 4,000 is a lot, actually.
It is indeed, yeah. Well,
and that's just from one route, because there's another route on the other side too.
Yes. So hopefully there won't be much damage, and you know, the authorities will be actually observing how that cap, you know, helps let's say the environment there, but we'll see. And then, okay, we have some another comment in Clubhouse from Tom-san. He wrote, "I'm not in Japan, but I heard the snow on Mount Fuji melted in November, which is unusual. Maybe an indicator of climate change has arrived in Japan." Well,
I haven't noticed
yes, like everywhere. It is Tom-san, somebody in Clubhouse. Yes.
I haven't noticed that there was a melt in November.
Well, I am not sure that it was in the news. Probably there was. Okay. And then, yes, climate change is already, you know, it is perceptible everywhere. So I believe that it's not only in Japan, every other part of the world. And then from Gerard about the person who commented about the taxis. Okay, they have been featured on NHK in Shizuoka and Kumano Kodo. Well, that doesn't tell me much, Gerard, about what kind of business they do. But okay, maybe we can continue the topic later, next week, since we are going to be here again. Well, if Timothy is not against it, of course, because... Right. Maybe, Timothy, you get, you know, some support from people telling me, you know, to let you go and help you relax at least during the holidays. So, but we'll see how it goes. Well, again, it looks like there aren't other comments and questions at this point of time, and I would like to wrap up and wish everybody, yes, happy holidays, you know, happy or Merry Christmas, and also a Happy New Year. Timothy?
Maya.
Yes. Sorry.
Oh, we have Ren. Yes, Ren?
Happy New Year too.
Thank you.
Thank you. So our next briefing is the last day of the year. And in true form and fashion, we will be here to brief you next Sunday, the 31st of the year. The next day will be the first day of the year, but we'll be here to give you an update. I don't know what's going to happen over the next week. I anticipate that there will be some movement and some action going on, but in any event, we'll talk about it and give you an opportunity to explore. different things that are of interest to you. So please continue to provide, comments to us, suggestions, likes, send money, kisses, everything's, good.
Yes. Okay, so thank you very much. Timothy, I lost you for a moment, so I really didn't get the joke. So I'll have to watch the YouTube video, since it seems that YouTube is, at the moment, it is more reliable than Clubhouse. Well, but that's it.
Okay.
Okay, once again, thank you very much for these 150 episodes, for being here every Sunday at 8:20. I appreciate that. And to everybody who stuck with us, really, thank you very much. Have a great day. Enjoy Christmas and also the coming week.
Merry
That's
Christmas.
all for the moment. Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
See
Christmas.
you.
See you.